Welcome soulmates to the sewing of our beautiful gown. Now this is the front part. You can see I've cut the fabric and the lining and I spread the fabric, right? This is this part. I showed us how to close this, right? Now this is the back side. So for the back upper part, I did not close that. We are going to sew the dart. So you indicate adding my sewing allowance. On this part, I added my zipper allowance of 3/4 of an inch, then my sewing allowance on the back side. This is the front part. I added sewing allowance and 1/2 inch on the front part so that we can use it to join the other CF side. Okay, we did not close the dart. Now this is the lower part for the back. I decided to close the dart the same way we closed the other dart for the front. Okay, just keep it on a straight line, close it, and then whatever it is you think you're short of, you can always add it as sewing allowance together with the sewing allowance. So without wasting time, we're going to be sewing this now. What I'm going to do is to join the main fabric separate. I'm going to join all the the main fabric separately, and then join the lining separately. Okay, this is the front, this is the back. I'm going to put them together shoulder to shoulder and join it, right? I'll put the other part shoulder to shoulder and join it, and also join the side. So for the front, this is what I have. I'm going to join it here. This is the lower part for the front and this is the upper part. So I'm going to put this together, knowing that I added the same sewing allowance. I'll put it together here from the beginning at the top this way. I'm going to merge it just the same way I did on the other one, and that's where we're going to be sewing. So I'm going to put them together like so. So the excess that we're going to have, you can decide to pleat it, you can decide to gather it and make sure it fits into the lower part, that is at the under bust. Okay, so this is how it's going to look. By the time you sew it, you're going to mark out the part where you'll be pleating the excess, the part that is going to remain. So I'm going to pleat here, make sure that the two of them are on the same position. So I'm going to pleat around this curvy part. This is how it's going to be. Like I said before, you can either pleat or you gather and put them together. Okay, so I'm going to do this for the front part. Once I get it right, then I will go back to the back part. So this is what I'm going to sew. I'm going to sew it from the inside and pleat this part into it, pleat this part into it. So this is the front that fixed just the way I showed us. This is how it's going to be, right? Now this is the back side. I've just fixed one part of it. Like I held the dart, okay, just by at the waist side I held the dart, and this is how I joined it to the lower part of the back. Just use your sewing allowance and join them together. Just please be careful. So just join them together, and that is what I'm going to do to this part. Join it. I just thought to show us how I'm going to join it. I'm going to join it this way after holding the dart so that the two of them can match up, and then we'll begin the same way you sewed this. That's how you're going to sew the lining, so that you can use the lining to turn the neckline, the front and back neckline and other areas too. if your fabric is very thick, you might consider not having lining or stay to it. You can just sew it like that. You're going to be making a ready to wear without lining and stay if your fabric is thick. But here I just want to add the stay and the lining so that it can have a little bit of structure. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do now is to join the shoulders together. I'm going to join the shoulders together, front back to um back side, and then I'm going to join the sides together. Okay, I'll join the fabric separate and I will join the lining separate, after which I will come back. So this is what we have. You can see how beautiful it's coming out, right? How beautiful it is. So I've not attached the lining. I'm going to attach the lining when I'm done with this. So the next thing I'm going to do is to get my fabric which I'm going to gather. Here I measured 3 yards, okay? Then the length of what I need. The length here is about 25, which I'm going to gather into this place. So what I'm going to do now is to gather this fabric to the same measurement that I have here, to the same measurement of this blouse or gown or whatever you call it. Okay, I'll gather it in such a way that I'm going to fix it into here. So this is 3 yards. You can do times 3 of the measurements you have here. You can do times 2. It depends on how much you want, how full you want it to be. So I'll go to the machine now and gather this, and then we'll fix it into this place. Okay, so here, so mates, I've added the gathered parts to the lower part. Now something I did was to make sure that this front becomes um just like almost like a V. Okay, and while sewing it at this lower part, make sure you hold it very well so that this part that is long will not be poking out, like it will not be popping out. Okay, it should relax very well, and for it to relax very well, you need to hold this lower waistline very well and make this part to be in form of a V. If you make it like a U shape, there are chances that it will not relax well and it shouldn't have space, especially at this part. At this lower part, it shouldn't have space so that it relaxes very well. Okay, so this is it for attachment of this. Now to finish this, of course we're going to be adding sleeve, so I'm going to attach the lining first before the sleeve. Now you can decide to add lining to the gathered part. You can decide not to add lining. This might just be all you need. So I'm going to sew the lining right side to right side to the shoulders, to the neckline and to the back neckline. Okay, and of course we're going to be adding zip. So add the lining to the neckline first before sewing the zip. So what I'm going to do now, you can use your pin to hold it down first, right? Make sure that you sew this part which is on a straight line, you sew it on a straight line and continue your sewing to the shoulder area. Okay, if you need to make sure that they match up together, or if one part is longer, you hold it more. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to join it, but I will not join it to this area. I will keep my zipper allowance so that I will join the zip and then close it up entirely. So like I was saying, you can decide to add lining to this gathered area. If your fabric is kind of transparent, you can add lining to it. So what I'm going to do now is to attach this lining to this neckline, right side to right side, and we'll come back. This is the lining. Now I didn't want to put this lining, but I just have to. Okay, if you're not going to be adding lining, you can use bias to finish the neckline. You can use facing to finish the neckline. Okay, and that's if you did not add stay to it, or just to cover the rough edge. But I don't think I'll be adding lining to this lower part, since the fabric is not that transparent, and of course it is gathered. If I want to add lining, I will not gather the lining, I will just make it the size of this and fix to the waistline. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do now, even if I'll be adding lining, it might just be letter. Okay, so I'll be adding my zipper using my zipper allowance of 1 inch. Right, I'm going to start the fixing this way, and of course I'm going to sew 1/2 inch out, so what will remain is just quite small. 1 inch for my zipper allowance, and this is where it's going to stop. Just going to stop before this joining. That is the length of the zip before the joining. Right, I believe we know how to fix our zipper, invisible zipper. Okay, if you don't have the footer, this might be difficult for you to fix, but if you have the invisible footer, it will make it easier for you to fix it. So I'll just put it this way and fix on it. Okay,